Hi, we want to welcome those of you who are watching this in one place or another. We have Jordan Wall here today, one of our ACOP workers in British Columbia. And this is just part of a short series I'm doing with some of the leaders who aren't lead pastors, but are playing significant roles in the ministries that we share together in ACOP. And so Jordan is the executive director of Cowichan River Bible Camp, and we'll come back to that again in a few minutes. But first of all, Jordan, welcome. And just
Thank
tell
you.
us a little bit about yourself, for those people who don't know you for 20 years.
Yeah, I am 42 years old. I've been married for 21 years, so half my life. And I've got 3 kids, and my wife is Kaylee, and Ezra, and Petra, and Ansel. And yeah, I grew up at Cowichan Camp, and I've worked here all my life. I realized I've actually been employed here for over 27 years, and this year took over the directorship from my father, Jerry Wall, and who took it over from my grandfather, Alan McLean. So there's a lot of our heart and soul and blood and sweat and tears and everything else in this ground. Anyways, happy to be here.
No, thank you, Jordan. So just tell us a little bit about how God's worked in your life, your calling, your gifts, your passions, your midlife now. I guess we all hate it. I always put midlife off to at least 50, but I think if we're honest, 42 qualifies. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about God's working in your life, his calling.
I really felt my call to the ministry probably at the end of grade 12. Although, we were always involved here throughout our whole life, but felt my actual call to the ministry around the end of grade 12, and have, followed that in various forms since then, never having something that I wouldn't put aside for the ministry or for the work of the ministry, never a focus that was greater than that. And even when it came to, traveling with a band, it was always a ministry band. We traveled all over Canada, saw thousands of kids make decisions for Jesus. When we transferred out of that into more a role with our local church at the Oasis, we saw hundreds and hundreds of people make decisions between there and camp in the summers, and started a construction company and became a Red Seal carpenter. But at the same time, every night went to work at the camp, and every weekend and all summer, and built the church, all those things. But it was always second to the calling, and have definitely felt my calling was a supportive role for the most part, for my father and my brother, and not ashamed of that, even though most people never understood that concept, that you could be a second place guy and be very fulfilled. In this role, taking over a little bit from my dad, stepping into that first place role, it's been an interesting scenario in my mind, but especially not being able to exercise that very much because of this year.
Yeah,
Anyways.
So let's talk about that for a minute. I think it was the fall. I happen to sit on the board right now for a short couple of years, and in the fall, when the succession was planned, you were invited, and you began January 1st to serve as executive director. And then you're one of those leaders. There's a handful of them around who start a new job with, I'm sure, lots of ambition and ideas of what's going to happen. And then COVID hit. So tell us a little bit of how that feels to you, has felt to you.
It's funny. I started watching the COVID stuff in the end of November when it first started showing up on YouTube, and was watching it through December, and understanding that it was definitely going to be on the move, because everybody's on the move. And I was telling my wife in January, like the week that I took over, saying, I am already planning in my heart to be planning for a summer where camp doesn't happen. And everybody laughed and went, no, that's not a thing. And I said, I don't know why. And it was obviously the Lord preparing my heart, so that as the season progressed here and saw that it wasn't going to happen, I've been making plans the whole time for a few strategic moves to help insulate the camp from it, and also insulate the camp from the effects of the loss. So hopefully making the right wisdom choices in order to not be in a position where all of a sudden you go, oh no, it's all gone. But we are, no, it's been really interesting, and I'm watching a lot of other people navigate this around the province at other camps, and seeing just the kind of cross section of people's plans. It's been interesting. But.
Yeah, so I'm privy to what's called a Wayfair group that analyzes the Christian church all across Canada. And they came out a month ago showing that of 5 different categories, camps were the hardest hit in terms of potentially surviving or even coping with this. And I know you said you've just been on a Zoom call even this morning with many of the camps in British Columbia. So how do you see Cowichan positioned?
I actually think Cowichan's positioned better than most, because we have, essentially a very, very small staff and property that's owned, and very few liabilities as far as our monthly expenses. And in that, we have the ability to hopefully ride out this storm. And we've always had wonderful, generous givers that have always stepped up to the table when the need was there. And I'm sure that's not ever going to change. But I would say because of those things, that, and being a smaller facility and an older facility, we're definitely better positioned than a lot that are suffering right now, like in a big way. And I've heard the numbers as high as 1,000 summer camps will be lost permanently in Canada this summer, which is a terrible thought.
Yes. So turning to this summer, what are the plans for Cowichan this summer?
Well, this summer we are welcoming some pastoral staff people, some families to the camp for some respite and holidays that they might not be able to take normally because of their pastoring pressures. And we're also welcoming a couple of weeks of day camps that'll be operated out of the Oasis City Church in Duncan, and we'll be facilitating those here. So kind of a joint effort between the two. And then also offering a couple of weeks of rugged camping for families and family groups to be able to come and stay in our cabins or bring their RVs, which is even preferable. And with no set plan, there won't be any programming provided. Just a wonderful presence of the Lord that always resides on this property. And people will be having to cook for themselves. And we will have enhanced cleaning protocols and things like that, and still be managing social distancing for everybody, which is becoming kind of second nature. And but just getting all that in place so that people can still experience the camp property and grounds well in a completely different way than I think has probably been seen since the very early days of camp.
Yes, and I'm just sharing the page for one of those rugged camps, July 26th to August 1st. Not expecting that people will catch it all, but you can go on the Cowichan camp website and you will catch these plans, the day camps and the 2 rugged camps, and they can always contact you or be in touch. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, just send us an email and we will get back to you as quickly as we can.
Good. No, you're doing a good job coping with the current situation, and we're looking forward for the Lord's blessing. Kind of as we wrap up, if you were to summarize for people the long term, okay, forget the COVID for a moment, what's your sense of what God wants to do through this ministry?
We've been really talking about that, because we said you really have to have your vision established so that when the things start coming from side to side, giving you great opportunities and great ideas, they can be wonderful, but they can be completely distracting from what the plan is. And so we are discussing just kind of on our local leadership level, talking about watching the camp transitioning into a role so that it's functioning year round as a training facility at some level for Canadian ministers to understand that, your job's going to be difficult. Your job's going to be bivocational, and most likely you're going to need training in those departments and be prepared to go to these little towns that have no people, no pastors, And so that's my big goal. It could take years to get there, but hopefully not. But we said, like, this is a great season if there's pivoting that needs to take place. And also a great season for dreaming and planning.
Right.
But, and trying to, constantly be not retracting and be still maintaining or advancing at some level. So.
Very good. And we're going to pray together to that end. Just at the end,
Excellent.
if you can capsule it in a minute, I was privy to watching this happen. Cowichan had a good donation from a local church here in Langley. Just tell us a little bit about that, how this shows how God is preparing it for the future and even for now.
Yeah, we've been praying about kind of upgrading the facility to make our off-season times more comfortable. And a church from Langley, Southgate Church in Langley, was stepping out of their rental situation and preparing for their next phase. And so I received a phone call from a good friend, and so he suggested, would you guys be interested in all of our chairs? And we said, absolutely. So we just received 400 chairs and a new, kitchen set up and all of their equipment and things like that. So it was a massive donation, and just love that church and the ongoing relationship that we have with them in the summer as well. They have been one of our keystone rentals here for years, and we just love their vision and what they do when they come.
Yeah, and it's kind of unique that in this distancing season, you were able to dispose of the pews in a very good way and get chairs. It just suits what seems to be the future. It seems like God's in control on every level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just hanging on to that fact that I'm just moving forward day by day without a worry about trying to figure it all out in advance. And it's hilarious as you keep stepping forward, the things, the footsteps or the stepping stones land right in front of you as you step, but not necessarily before. And you can't necessarily plan for them to be there in place, but as you step, it's happening.
Yeah, good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to sign off on the recording. So thank you very much for talking to us, and pray that the Lord's going to bless what happens at Cowichan this summer, and the seeds that are sown for the future is going to be rich.
Yes.